Today, we're going to look at Yu-Gi-Oh cards and I'm going to guess whether they're good or not. A little bit of context, I have never played Yu-Gi-Oh. I used to collect the cards. I have a Blue Eyes White Dragon somewhere at my parents' house, but I haven't really played Yu-Gi-Oh, where I am pretty freaking good at Hearthstone. So let's see if my tiny Hearthstone brain can judge Yu-Gi-Oh cards. First card we're going to look at is Solemn Judgment, which is a trap card. I don't know what a trap card is. Hold on. A trap card must first be set and can only be activated after the current turn has finished. After that, it may be activated during either player's turn. Okay, so it was like what a secret used to be in Hearthstone before they changed it so it can only be activated on your opponent's turn. That makes sense. When a monster would be summoned or a spell/trap card is activated, pay half your life points, negate the summon or activation, and if you do, destroy that card. In Hearthstone, if this effect actually existed, I think it would be not super great. Paying half your life points to kind of just destroy or stop an activation would be way too many health points for you to actually want to do that. But in Yu-Gi-Oh, I think the effect is a little bit better because stopping a potential huge combo can be like game winning. I do think this card is very good, but I just think it's super risky. So maybe this card actually has potential in a game of Yu-Gi-Oh, but I'm cautiously optimistic on the fact that this card is semi-broken in that sense. It seems very strong. Is Solemn Judgment a good card? From doing a little research, is Solemn Judgment a good card? It turns out it's one of the best cards in the game and regarded as one of the best trap cards to be ever printed. Pretty good, man. Looks like Hearthstone's kind of paid off. The next card is going to be Pot of Extravagance, and I have seen Pot of Greed before, and I'm kind of excited to see what this card actually ends up doing because Extravagance sounds better than Greed. At the start of your main phase, banish 3 or 6 random face down cards from your extra deck. Face down. What? Draw 1 card for every 3 cards banished for the rest of your turn. After this, card resolves. You cannot draw any cards by card effect. What is an extra deck? The extra deck is separate from the main deck and contains combinations of Fusion, Synchro, XYZ, and Link monsters during the game. It is placed face down in the extra deck zone, and a player can summon special monsters included in there. I'm guessing all of these random, yeah, they're all monsters, right? So that's like special monsters, I guess. Okay. This one's a little bit harder for me because in Hearthstone, we don't really have like a extra deck that you could just pull cards from. So I'm going to guess that in Yu-Gi-Oh, this effect could actually be used quite well because banishing cards from an extra deck might not actually be super impactful to your game plan. And if you're drawing cards from your main deck, that's probably pretty good, I would think. So I'm gonna go with this card actually is good. Doing some research on this, it seems like Pot of Greed is still the best card for the pots in Yu-Gi-Oh, but Pot of Extravagance doesn't seem super bad, especially if you don't care about your extra deck, which is what I was going for. So I'm kind of right on this one. Just seems a little bit hard to analyze from a Hearthstone's perspective. The next card we're going to do is Lucky Punch. Once per turn, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can toss a coin 3 times. If the result is 3 heads, draw 3 cards, but if the result is 3 tails, destroy this card. If this face up card on the field is destroyed, you lose 6,000 life points. So I don't think it takes a genius to know that this is arguably one of the worst cards I think I've ever seen in any card game. And I think the aspect of getting lucky 3 times is just way too unlikely that you're probably never going to use this card effectively, which means this card has to be absolute garbage. Punch, a good card. When is this card ever useful? Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that this card was just pretty bad from the get-go, but it's pretty fun, I guess. The next card we're doing is Pot of Generosity. Return 2 cards from your hand to your deck, then shuffle your deck. I was trying to think of what reasons you would want this card for in your actual deck, and when I think about Hearthstone, this is a horrible card. There's never a point in my life when I'm playing Hearthstone where I say, I not only want to use a card to lose another 2 cards in my hand to shuffle my deck, but you're basically playing a card in your deck that you can potentially draw at another point in time that's just extremely weak. So this has to be garbage in Yu-Gi-Oh. Maybe there is some kind of mechanic where you kind of just want to shuffle your deck in a correct order, or just maybe get a shuffle because you get some kind of benefit. I'm not sure, but just in a vacuum, this card's garbage. When doing research on this card to see if it was good, it's really funny the like titles that pop up. Why is Pot of Generosity a card? Why does Pot of Generosity exist? Is there a point in Pot of Generosity? And I guess there's one guy that's saying Pot of Generosity is meta. But it looks like this card, based on my research, isn't super good. But there is some use cases. I did notice that there are some mechanics in Yu-Gi-Oh that require your deck to be shuffled to be activated. So it's not as bad as I was thinking, where in Hearthstone, this card was probably just absolutely garbage. The next card we're doing is actually our first minion, which is Doom Donuts. It is a fiend. Flip, destroy all face-up monsters on the field with an original attack or defense of 0. And it has an attack and defense of 0, which means once you flip this card, it should inevitably kill itself, right? This card was actually a lot harder to evaluate than I thought it was going to be, because the effect is so specific, but it can also be really good at just completely countering a deck that uses a 0 attack or defense minion. And the fact that this kills itself is very interesting, but I don't think you really care, because as long as you're killing something else, it's a 1-for-1, and there's a potential upside of killing multiple monsters. So maybe this is really, really good. I'm not honestly 100% sure on this one. I think in Hearthstone, this kind of effect would be not great. There's not a lot of minions that have 0 attack, so that's probably not going to be really good. But maybe in Yu-Gi-Oh, this effect is a lot better. So I'm going to go with maybe it's good, but I'm leaning towards it's pretty garbage. Doing some research on this, it looks like there is a lot of moments where people don't understand the point of the card, but it also seems like just from the wiki itself, this is a good side deck card against Steel, Swarm, and Yubil's decks. So there is a actual use case for this card, like I imagine. It seems like it's almost a tech card if you know what you're going against. So I was kind of right. I don't know if it's garbage. I would need someone in the comment to let me know if it's absolutely garbage, but from the research I've done, it looks like it's an okay card. The next card we're doing is Dark Bribe. When an opponent's spell/trap card is activated, your opponent draws 1 card. Also negate that spell/trap activation, and if you do, destroy it. Honestly, this card seems really powerful. It doesn't seem like the drawback of letting your opponent draw a card so they lose a potential spell or trap is that bad. And sure, you may not want your opponent to draw an extra card, but I think especially in a game like Yu-Gi-Oh, you probably want to stop your opponent from doing a spell or trap card so you don't die potentially. In Hearthstone, I think I would take this almost guaranteed if I could stop like a fireball from my opponent being cast for the cost of an additional card draw. I think that's a pretty safe trade-off. So I'm gonna imagine that this card is pretty good. It seems like the general consensus of Dark Bribe is that this card is okay. There's just other cards that do the same effect, but better. So I would imagine that this card is fine. It's just not one of the best cards in Yu-Gi-Oh. The last card we're going to look at is Yugioh Friendship, which just from the picture alone looks like a really interesting card, but the card's effect is offer your opponent a handshake. If they accept your handshake, each player's life points become half the combined life points of both players. If you have Unity in your hand, show it to your opponent, they must accept the handshake. So let's get the obvious part out of the way of this card. Giving your opponent a handshake can't really be done virtually unless they make a brand new mechanic in a game like Hearthstone, which I think is very possible. And I actually really like the effect of kind of mitigating a lot of damage that's being done from your opponent to basically split both of your combined life into 2. And I can maybe see this card actually being pretty decent. If you use this in some kind of control deck and you're going against someone who wants to combo you, but they didn't quite kill you, you can kind of mitigate a lot of their damage while inflicting a lot on theirs. So I'm going to guess that this card has potential, but I don't think it's great, but it is a really cool card. It seems like this card is definitely much more of a meme card, but I just want to point to this comment alone, and that says, I heard it's been used in the past and someone would just do gross things with his hand and then offer the handshake. That's actually so messed up, but I guess that's some kind of win condition. I'm not really sure. Anyways, that's the end of this video. I hope you ended up enjoying it. And if you did, I would appreciate a subscription, and I'll see you in the next one. You look fantastic.